The Shark Deck.
Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I have to go slowly and get this one right. Movie Maker was recapping Bert Kreischer's recent appearance on the Dana Carvey, David Spade podcast, Fly on the Wall. Bert starts telling a story about Will Smith, and I've done a little digging, and I see he has told a Will Smith story as far back as 2014, okay? So this is not Bert being opportunistic here, but the story caught my eyes because Movie Maker's headline is Bert Kreischer mistakenly thought Will Smith and 12 other dudes wanted to have sex with him. Okay, I'll read. So it's way back when Rolling Stone did the cover story about Bert Kreischer, which launched his career. If you don't know what that is, he was named the top partier at the #1 party school in the country. Shall we stop off there? Sure, why not? April 17th, 1997, Rolling Stone, the headline, Bert Kreischer, the undergraduate. It's taken the Florida State University student 6 years to become the man he is today, the top partier at the #1 party school in the country. Back in 97, they wrote, the other day on a Tuesday, shortly before the noon hour, Bert Kreischer splashed a bit of peach tree schnapps into a glass of orange juice, topped it off with some vodka, and thought he'd probably skip class. He was a student at FSU. Bert yawned and scratched at some of the stubble on his chin. He stuck a finger into his drink, tinkling the ice cubes floating around there. He thought about the day. If he didn't go to class, he'd play Frisbee instead. In the early evening, he'd hoist a few beers at home, then hit the bars until some o'clock in the morning. Tomorrow, maybe he'd go to class, but without doubt, he'd be drinking again by sundown. Hopefully, he wouldn't black out. Odds were against his blacking out because he hadn't in a while. Then, looking forward in time, Bert saw Thursday evening a great big bash on his back deck with a live band and lots of beer. Friday evening, getting soused wherever. Finally, Saturday, he'd be super loaded before, during, and after the football game. Beyond that, into the further reaches of adulthood, he could not see. Why should he? He was deeply in the moment of now. Again, this is from 1997. Fascinating, right? Skipping ahead, he'd run twice for office at his fraternity, Alpha Tau Omega. The first time, he made his big campaign speech in the nude and lost. The second time, he dropped the idea of a speech. Instead, he appeared before his brothers in the nude and took a crap on a pizza box. General bedlam ensued. He won by a landslide. The rest of the story is paywalled. All right, let's get back to having sex with Will Smith. Kreischer told David and Dana, 6 months in, Will Smith discovers me. I'm doing stand-up. 6 months. I'm working the door at the Boston Comedy Club. I go to meet Will at the record studio or wherever, and he goes, you're cool, man. We should go. We should hang out. And I'm like, yeah. They can call me and we'll hang out one day. And he goes, what are you doing tonight? And I'm like, nothing. And he goes, let's go to the movies. Kreischer calls his dad, and Dad goes, how'd it go? And I say, good. We're going to the movies. And my dad's like, on a date? Oh, buddy, I think he wants to, cleaning it up, hook up with you. Kreischer says, Dad, that's impossible. Dad says, what's more likely? The fact that you're so talented in the 6 months of doing stand-up that the biggest movie star in the world wants to do a sitcom with you? Or that he's tired of, and I'm really cleaning this up, women parts, and he wants to hook up with you. I quite paraphrased there. Bert says, what do I wear? Following his father's advice, Kreischer said he dressed as sloppily as possible, in overalls and a sweater. He meets Will Smith at Planet Hollywood. Someone tells him to go downstairs. Quoting Bert here, then there's 10 black dudes in this room waiting for me. I'm doing the math. I'm like, I'm sure he's bringing Jazzy Jeff. That's the 13 dudes I'm gonna hook up with tonight. He shows up with Jazzy Jeff. I swear to God. There was no sex involved, and he said it was a good movie. So I was curious about this, and back in 2014, Bert Kreischer told a version of the story to the AV Club. In that version, he says, Will Smith's boys discovered me in a club, and they told me, I want to do a deal with you, but you have to get Will to like you. If Will likes you, it's a deal. And I was like, done. In my head, this was my sweet spot. I'm a huge hip-hop fan, and I've been a huge Will Smith fan since parents just don't understand. I knew everything there was to know about Will Smith, so I was like, you just sent a stallion into the Kentucky Derby. Anyway, I went to the music studio where he was working. They were like, Mr. Kreischer, walk in here. Mr. Smith will be in a second. I walked in. It was his huge dance studio. I mean, mirrors everywhere. There was a ballerina bar and 2 folding chairs in the center, and they said, grab a seat. I grabbed the chair with my back towards the door, and Will Smith walks in 2 minutes later like a hurricane of personality. And I'm like, oh my God, I love you. I love hip-hop. I love Biggie. I love Tupac. Who killed Tupac? Who killed Biggie? Did you know he was on the cover of my Rolling Stone magazine? I love Jada. Did she have sex with Tupac? I love black people. I literally rambled to him for an hour and he listened. When there was a break, he would interject with a very poignant insight. And I was like, this guy is amazing. It was almost like a perfect date. Then all of a sudden he was like, I like you. And I was like, I like you. And he said, what are you doing tonight? And I was like, nothing. And he said, let's go to the movies. And I was like, perfect. He said, meet me at Planet Hollywood at 7. I was like, done. So I get up and walk out. Bert then tells a very similar version of what I just told you about the conversation with his dad. In the 2014 version, Bert shows up wearing overalls and a sweater, gets to Planet Hollywood. He asks if Will Smith is there, and a woman says he's in the back. Bert goes to the back, and there's a mannequin of Will Smith, and I go, no, I'm looking for the Will Smith. I need to see Will Smith. And she was like, son, movie stars don't hang out at Planet Hollywood. But I was like, do you mind if I wait for him? And she said, sure, knock yourself out. Anyway, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden there's a 6'7", 350-pound black dude named Charlie Mack, who's a real dude. There's a song about him. And he says, hey, are you Bert? And I go, yeah. And he goes, downstairs. I get downstairs. There's 9 black dudes sitting in a room with a folding table in the middle. And I'm like, are you joshing me? It's one room with a velvet curtain on all walls. And he goes, down here, I sit down. I don't make eye contact with a soul. All I'm thinking about is the math of how much, paraphrasing here, sex I'm going to have this evening. Will Smith comes in with Jazzy Jeff. And I'm like, how many guys is this? Will looks at me and is like, guys, this is the guy. And everybody starts walking right at me. And I'm literally about to grab a knee when the curtains open and a beautiful private movie theater shows up. Will looks at me and says, grab a seat. I'll grab his drinks. We watched American Pie. It was beautiful. I had the greatest time. He was awesome. At the end of the night, he goes, what'd you think? And I go, it was great. And he goes, no, what'd you think of the room? And I go, it was beautiful. And he said, what about the people in it? You said you were a hip-hop fan. Look around. So I look around and he goes, that's Biz Markie. That's Kumo D. And I'm like, holy crap. And all I'm thinking to myself is, I could have had sex with Biz Markie. I quite cleaned that up. Cracked has some more about that William Shatner story. I told you Shatner shared an anecdote where he did stand up as James T. Kirk. Shatner's idea was that he would perform as Captain Kirk, theorizing it would be really funny if the Starfleet captain wants to be a stand-up comic, but he doesn't know how to do it. That meant delivering purposely hacky material, telling the worst jokes possible, the take my wife please kind of humor. Shatner recounted the crowd stared at him with their mouths open in awe, realizing they were in the middle of a complete disaster. Nobody laughed because they were too busy being stunned at this colossally bad idea. Shatner said it was probably the worst thing that ever happened to me. Nashville scene caught up with Sarah Silverman. They asked her, do you find your jokes hit differently in red states or blue states? Sarah said, I mean, yeah, sometimes. I know about this drag bill that just passed. That's gross. And obviously I have a lot of abortion material, and it's wild to go to states where it's illegal, but I think all the more reason to be talking about it. It's just so bizarre. Every state is both, really. I mean, people think of California as so blue, but there's so much red in California if you go to Orange County and Sacramento and all those places. That's why I love doing those states, because people are psyched to come out for it. It doesn't represent everyone in every state. And I like to think I can be entertaining to anybody, but I'm not for everyone. I'm far less political in my stand-up, but I still am. I talk about abortion, gay rights, gay stuff. So yeah, it's always interesting, but I feel like in red states, it's even more appreciated, to be honest. But yeah, Tennessee, man, I love it. Love hate. I mean, I'm from New Hampshire, which is the same kind of like blue and red, but lots of red, but loud, proud blue too. Not to be so partisan. I'm as left as you can be, but I get annoyed with others on the left as well. Nashville scene followed up and said, you mentioned the drag bill. Sarah said, yeah, like, are we going to stop car shows? Because that would be fair as well. It's just so bizarre. DeSantis in Florida, too. This is kind of like anything. This is anti-woke. It doesn't matter if it hurts people, helps people. It's just vindictive. It's purely ego-based stuff, and they're hurting people. Just gross. I mean, and this is the party of less government telling us what shows we can put on. F you. Sarah adds, I bet Dolly Parton will speak out because she's Tennessee royalty and no one supports drag more than her. She considers herself as drag. She's putting on a face, a mask, and a wig, and she puts on this outer shell that she thinks of as drag. And there are so many drag dollies, and she loves them. She supports them. I hope she's outspoken about this. I bet she will be. I love her so much. She's one of the few things the right and the left can agree on, that Dolly Parton is the stuff.
Welcome to How to Tickle Yourself. I'm your host, Duff McDonald.
And I'm your co-host, Matt McButter. We'll be talking to people who specialize in different ways of inhabiting their own consciousness, from artists to yoga teachers to scientists. We've even got a professional magician.
We're going to ask them questions like, what is consciousness? Why does it tickle? And what is magic anyway? Is it just card tricks, or is it the fact that your little speck of consciousness is part of a perfect possibility machine?
Find us wherever you get your podcasts and at storicmedia.com.
If you enjoy what I do here, one way you can support the show is become a premium subscriber on Apple Podcasts. For $5 a month, you'll get the episodes ad-free and a little bit early. By a little bit early, I mean usually the afternoon before official release. And you can test drive that for free for a month if you want to check that out. They've announced a sequel to Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I don't know. I get what they're going for here, but I wonder if it's too on the nose. Added to the cast, Patton Oswalt and Kumail Nanjianai, and I'm really reacting to the Patton casting. I feel like it's too meta. Like, I can't imagine watching that movie and not being like, that's Patton Oswalt, that's Patton Oswalt. James Acaster also in the cast, joining Paul Rudd and Carrie Coon. The movie's slated to come out December of this year, so they're going to have to get moving. I don't know. Quick note, I've been on the various Reddits about stand-up comedy, and I'm noticing a lot of negative reactions to Bert Kreischer. That latest special did not go over well, and people are discussing if Bert Kreischer is a hack. He apparently had a couple bad podcast appearances as well, and people aren't feeling the special, and the buzz is off Bert right now. We'll keep an eye on that. That's surprising. Jimmy O Yang, he's fantastic. He's got another special coming to Amazon. It'll launch May 2nd. In Good Deal, Jimmy O Yang will poke fun at love languages, loser friends, and negotiating with his Asian parents. And the Chief Comedy Festival is coming to Trinidad, Colorado, May 5th and 6th. In the big boxes, Ron Lynch and Emma Arnold are your headliners. Emma Arnold, you know where she's from? Canada? Nope. Ohio? Nope. Idaho. Yes, Boise, Idaho. Idaho, apparently, the hotbed of comedy in 2023. Among the people performing at the festival, a friend of the show, Dan Bublitz. If you missed the episode 8 days ago, I spent an hour talking comedy with Dan, and he hinted about an unnamed festival at which he might be appearing. Dan, looks like we've solved the mystery, huh? Can't keep anything secret from Daily Comedy News. I've got sources everywhere. I found out about this from an insider. Sources close to Dan Bublitz told me he'd be at the Chief Comedy Fest. Again, that's coming up in May. And that's your comedy news for today. Follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow. All right, here's the pitch. 5 stories. They're all good news. It's called 5 Good News Stories. No negative news, just good news. Nice, easy way to start your day. Hopefully you smile. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac, host of 5 Good News Stories. You get the premise? There's 5 stories, and they're all good news. So the number 5, Good News Stories. 5 Good News Stories. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts.